Hello, Rachel Service here, the CEO of Happiness Concierge and the author of There Has to Be More, the Essential Guide to Personal Growth. I wanted to make this special video to run you through a really beautiful exercise that I personally went through a few years ago, and I started to share with my clients throughout the years. And this exercise is really perfect for people who might be experiencing, and you can, let me know if this is your experience. It might not be, but if it is, the feeling that you're thinking one thing and you're going through an evolution and your outside world just doesn't reflect your inside world, or you've gone through a transition or an evolution or a bit of growth, or you've had an aha moment, or you're getting to know yourself better, right? And then you look around and all of a sudden the outside world doesn't look like you or your version of success or your expectations for yourself or what you think or what freedom or creativity or autonomy or agency might look like to you. So, for example, when I had my aha moment at Beyonce, I had the vision board. I had all of Beyonce's albums. I had all the motivational books that you could get. But what was missing for me was that while I had the belief system that anything was possible, I was looking outside of my worldview thinking, oh, well, I'm burnt out and my bank account's kind of dry. And the friendship, I'm looking for more in my friendships. I'm looking for more in so many areas of my life. And what I realized in that moment and through reflection was that I needed to kind of bring together my private self and what I really thought and what I really felt and what I really believed, and my public self, my work, my relationships, being out and about. I had an opportunity to bring those worlds closer together. So if you've ever felt like I certainly have as though there's a separation from your public and private self, and you're curious about how you might bring those two worlds together in congruence with who you are or who you're becoming, I think you'll find this reflection really fun. Now, it's a bit of a deep thinking one, so take your time with it, and let's go through the exercise together. If you're reading from There Has to Be More, the book, I'm on page 46, and if you've got the workbook, I can see we're on page 13, thinking about your private and public selves. If you're looking for any inspiration on this, you might enjoy having a cheeky Google of my TED Talk, How to Break Up with Your Public Identity. So let's look at the first question here. I'm reading from the book here. Think about your private and public selves. Just have a think about that concept. In what ways might your private self, e.g. what you really think, in what ways might that be denied airtime? So examples might be, I don't speak up at church, or I don't speak up at work, or I'm in a conversation where people are making a joke and I don't think it's funny, or I'm doing something for work that I kind of fundamentally can't get on board with, or I'm in a conversation with loved ones and I'm not connecting with the conversation, or I have a very different view to the people I'm spending time with, or I have a passion to be, I don't know, motivational speaker wearing a pink jacket, and here I am wearing black. Like, it's all good, it's quite stylish, but it's just about in what ways might I be denying my private self is a question here, e.g. what you really think, and how might you be denying that airtime. So take a moment to write down either areas of your life or areas that you found yourself stopping from sharing your unique point of view or your fullest self, or your most authentic self with others or in the public arena. So examples, as I mentioned, might be work, might be with family, might be with friends, it might be in faith, it might be with your community. When I read it out like that, there's quite a few actually, quite a few areas. How might you deny or dull or hush your private self, and in what circumstances? Yeah. I've found a really helpful guide for my clients when we go through this exercise is being explicit. As Jay-Z raps in the album 444, you cannot heal what you never reveal. And while I'm sure the saying is not unique to Jay-Z, I've certainly found that to be true myself. When we shine a light and get really specific on what's causing us to feel a dullness or a delay or even pain, we can actually start to separate ourselves from that feeling by getting specific to what specifically do you worry about people saying, thinking, feeling. So if your secret private self was to get out, what do you worry about people thinking, feeling, saying? Yeah. And again, we're coming up with the concept of judgment here, aren't we? Like we mentioned in the expectations exercise earlier on, the idea of breaking up with public expectation or others' expectations or even ourselves, right? So often when I ask my clients, what do you worry about people saying, thinking, feeling? Feelings of a fear of judgment, a fear of rejection, a fear of, oh, you think you're better than me, or a fear of not fitting in, right? And that's at the heart of this exercise. We want to feel like we're fitting in, we're accepted, and of course that we're safe and secure, right? So just have a little gentle inquiry with your beautiful self to think, what if I was to write out what so-and-so might say, or other people, or imaginary cloud of judgment, right? What would their statement be? What's the fear-based statement? So clients have shared with me, it's around, I can't accept you, or I don't understand you, or nobody else is doing things like this. So permission to be very meta, as they say, very specific with this, as you write it out. And I think you'll find it quite cathartic. Many of my clients find themselves writing and writing and writing and writing, and that's awesome. Pardon me. As an example of, what do I want to say here? As an example of this idea of being a public self or someone who might be at odds with who you're becoming, you don't need to be a public figure to feel this way. Like we all feel this way. We all have these moments inside. We're in a meeting or we're with people or out and about or we're reading something. We think, I just don't care anymore. Or, this isn't me anymore, right? So it's all good. I want you to think about, is part of the idea of breaking up with your public self around people knowing you as a certain person or acting a certain way or speaking a certain way or thinking a certain way or squeezing to their demands or always saying yes. Are there specific people who know you as a certain person, and if you might be tempted to write them down. I often find writing down, for me personally, works really well. You might prefer to reflect and just ponder. Are there certain people that I'm connecting the conduit between expectation and judgment and my own kind of wanting to express more of myself, potentially? Write them down. They could be a work figure, a parental figure, a friend figure, a family figure, someone down the road. It could be anyone, your neighbor. It could be anyone, right? Yeah. As we flip the page over to page 14 in the workbook and 47 in the There Has to Be More book, the question I want to ask here is, what does their feedback or perspective, we'll go back to page 13 and or page 46, right? What specifically do you worry about people saying? Take a look at that list or think back to that list. Now ask yourself this question. If they were to say that or think that, what does that mean about their worldview? Not your worldview, but their worldview. If they were to say it, what does it mean about them? The reason I want to invite you to think about this is because so often when we worry about judgment and all the fears that can come up, right? It's because we've had exposure to what people have shared externally that are important to them. And often when we are growing or evolving or transitioning or expanding, often we start to have different worldviews. We extend it, we kind of deepen our understanding, we create our own definitions of success, right? So if and when you look at the fears and pardon me, and people are judging or talking about giving you that feedback, what might that mean about them? Might it simply mean they see the world in a very different way? Might that mean they've just never seen or heard or understood you to be this other side of yourself? They've never seen this part of your beautiful personality or persona. Might it mean that they have different beliefs, probably, different faiths, different expectations, different experiences which have informed the choices I've made, different fears. We talk more about concern trolling, the idea of judging someone under the false sense of concern later on in the book. What does it mean about their worldview? And therein lies the opportunity, right? It's so tempting to sit in our own pain or discomfort or uncertainty around what we might be experiencing at the hands of others or the words of others, when in fact, when we communicate, we're simply sharing what we know, what we think, what our perspective is, and the purpose of asking for more, seeking more, looking for more is around creating our own definition of success and removing the layers of things that are not quite right to make room for the things that are. Yeah. So as you think about their worldview, their belief system is the term I want to use here, and we often use that in coaching. If we want someone to make a change, first we need to understand what they believe to be true, because what we believe is so interconnected with us holding on to our identity or identities. So when you think about that worldview, or you might think belief system, think about their worldview, their reality. We often say that. What's the other person's reality? How do they see things? How aligned are you with their reality? Do you agree with that? Do you have a different view? Did you used to, or maybe you changed your mind? That's cool. Life happens. How aligned are you to their worldview or the feared worldview? And from here is a great way to recognize where you might have agreed in the past and when you might have changed, or where you might have always thought differently, and now you've got the words or the opportunity, or as we say in the later part of the book around preparing for growth and debuting your growth, be prepared for people to have pushback because they're just getting used to a new version of you, and you simply let them know that it wasn't until doing these exercises in this book called There Has to Be More that you realize there was more out there for you, and you're curious and you've evolved your understanding. So when in doubt, you can always blame it on me. So how do your current actions, this is a good one, endorse their worldview? So people communicate with us in a way that they understand is safe, is reciprocal, is helpful, is understood. So for example, let's say you and I have a different belief system, and you're telling me about, I'm telling you all about how, I don't know, great pink blazers are. And you're thinking, oh, pink blazers, jeepers, that's not for me. You know, if you were to say, oh, pink blazers, that's lovely. I'm thinking, oh, well, that's great. They love pink blazers. I might send them a few or send them photos of pink blazers. And then you're like, oh, I'm stuck with these pink blazers. That's a bit of a lighthearted example. But what I want to talk to here is about the role of reciprocity to respond to someone validating their worldview. And when we feel moments of anxiety or uncomfortableness or this guilt, it can often be because our words are not in congruence with our actions. And we know from years of studying people in the workplace, from our work at Happiness Concierge, is that aligning words and actions is one of the top 5 things that employees are looking for when it comes to workplaces, both from a retention, that is HR speak for staying in your job, and from an attraction, more HR speak from my world, in terms of being an appealing brand or workplace or company or firm to work for. Alrighty, we're diving a little bit deeper, so go at your own pace and feel free to hit me on pause if you just need a minute. I totally understand. Or if these questions are not in congruence with where you're at, but if you are with me, thank you. Here's the other question from the book. In what ways will continuing to make decisions based on appeasing that person or those people's judgment stop you? So we've done 3 levels here. We've done level 1, what are we afraid of others saying, thinking, feeling, doing? Number 2, what does that mean about their worldview? Number 3, do we agree with that? Probably not if we're having this conversation, right? And as another step from that, we're saying, what's our role in this dynamic? How am I validating this? How am I pouring proverbial petrol on the fire towards this? How am I being a part of this? How am I endorsing this? How am I enabling this? And so, in what ways will continuing to make decisions, that is your actions, what you choose to do next, how will that stop you? How will appeasing to other people's judgments, or these very specific people judgments, how will that stop you? So example might be, I'm living my best life, but on the weekends when I go and see my family, I feel like I'm living a totally different life, and I'm, pretending, or I feel my false self coming through, or everything's great when things are a bit challenging, or I've chosen not to share parts of my world with some of my friends. So when I go to my friend's house, I'm kind of playing a dual role. That's where that anxiety and stress and guilt and disingenuousness and lack of depth can come from, when we're kind of balancing a few different, I suppose, alter egos, or super alter egos, it might be a phrase to use there. So it's about just asking ourselves, there's no judgment here. It's really the first step towards growth is self-awareness, followed by self-discipline. The confluence of that are the foundations for your growth, and reflection is the glue that binds them all, right? So when we think about reflecting on what is our role in these dynamics, how will that stop us? And I'm not asking you to take action now. We will do that throughout the book, throughout the growth cycle, and then in the final section, your survival guide, how to do that launch or share or choose not to. That's cool too. I think we're just asking, what role am I playing, and how is that limiting me to finding more in my life, work, and beyond? Yeah. There's an extra bonus question here, so I'm going to read from the book on page 47 of the book, page 14 of the workbook. In what ways could making decisions based on your own beliefs enable you to live a life that reflects your beliefs and values? Love to end on a positive. So think about, if we've looked at the reflective, pardon me, we've looked at the past, one moment, that was a good one. If we've looked at the past and we're looking at the present, we're now pivoting our view to the future, right? Which is to say, if I were to make decisions based on my own beliefs, how would that enable me to live a life that reflects my beliefs and values? So examples might be, making decisions might be at the dinner table when there's a conversation that's probably at odds with who I am. I might say, hey, I've actually got a different view on that. Are you interested in hearing that? Or another example at work could be if I've been given an assignment which doesn't sit well with me, or I'm just not clear what it is. Instead of leaning into fear of, I need to know what I'm doing, I can lean into curiosity and focusing on what I do know, which is to say, hey, I do understand this. Could you help me clarify this? And another example, making decisions based on my own beliefs. I know at the time when I was coming back from Beyonce, I didn't really have a game plan yet. I was still figuring out myself and getting to know myself. In the interim, I solely focused on saying no to things that didn't feel right or didn't fit with me. And then I could work on my confidence in saying no's and slowly work on my boundaries as the extension of that. And as a result, that gave me the gift of space. And with that space, instead of going to events, it wasn't bad being around people, but I wasn't feeling expansive. I wasn't energized. I wasn't intellectually stimulated, or I wasn't present. I was able to create space for myself. And with that gift of space, I was able to get curious to say, oh, what could an evening look like when I'm not doing that obligation? What could a Sunday look like when I'm not insert activity here, which, I'd outgrown or whatever, right? So in what ways could making decisions, having conversations, taking points of action based on your own beliefs enable you to live a life that reflects your beliefs and values? Food for thought. Hey, have fun with this exercise. Go gentle with yourself with this exercise. It's a deep one, but I often come back to this when I'm kind of don't feel myself. And I come back to my I want list when I'm clear, once I've done this work. And when I get clear on what I'm worried about other people saying and writing down what specifically and whom and what that looks like, I'm able to pivot into future positive steps of action. And I pray and I hope that the same is true of you too, of course. Have fun, stay safe with this, and don't be shy. Feel free to email me and my team of beautiful happiness concierges at hello@happinessconcierge.com. Thanks for watching and see you soon.